All right, guys, we're recording. So we got episode, I think, 40. And we got a special guy here. We got AJ Kovacs, New York State champ, Connecticut State champ. I think he might be the first person to ever do that, New York and Connecticut. Second his senior year, but coming off a really serious elbow injury. No excuses. He still was the best guy in the bracket, but things happen. Flow national champ. Placed at Super 32, done a lot of great things. Wrestling at NC State now. And I got my KD for the fans that are big KD fans. I got my KD train shirt on. Let's win, as Coach KD has coined that phrase.
Yeah, I don't see. Where's mine, KD? Where's mine, KD?
Dude, nobody likes a beggar, okay?
KD said he's not giving out.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right, but AJ, how we normally start, and I actually don't know this because I know a lot about you, obviously, but I don't know this one as much. How did you start wrestling, and why did you get into it?
So I started off in football with Jacob Camacho, actually. And we were both playing for they were called the Vikings at the time. And his mom came up to my mom and was like, hey, I'm signing up my son for wrestling. Like, I don't know, like, a lot of people in there, like, you should sign your kid up and they, like, could do it together and stuff like that. And this is back when me and Jake were, like, the same weight or whatever. Me, Jake, RJ, like, all those guys. So we all just joined wrestling pretty much at the same time, like first grade, kindergarten, something like that.
That's awesome. And how would you explain maybe your youth experience? And let's not go all the way to 7th and 8th grade because that's when I knew you and you obviously were very good at that point. Young years, how was that for you?
I was actually so bad at wrestling. I kind of did it because all my friends did it. My football friends did it. My wrestling friends did it. They were all really the same friends. It was me, Jake, RJ, a couple other guys from back home. And it was really just to do it for fun. I actually don't think I won, like, any matches in youth. So I really just did it just because I thought it was fun.
Coach, don't you think that's crazy that I kind of love their connection, AJ, Camacho, and RJ, where, AJ kind of did his own thing and he went off to Iona with John, which was, I think, a great move on his part and it worked out really well. But they all still trained at the club together. They all were super close and now they're all at NC State together. And it's pretty interesting that they kind of just,
How was your experience as a youth? Like, did you guys have a great coach?
Yeah, well, all of our coaches really were people who have wrestled through the whole program, like, previously. So it's really, like, we knew everyone who was coaching us, like, whose kids they were, because most of their kids were at the high school level already. So a bunch of their, like, dad would coach the youth, and then that would lead, like, the high school guys to come in and, like, coach some of the practices. So we always kind of looked up to the high school guys and just were like, oh, like, that's really cool. Like, maybe one day, like, I'll be as good as them someday.
Yeah, imagine that. You probably dwarfed them junior, sophomore year.
Yeah.
I I remember some Danbury kids that were pretty tough, but nothing compared to you guys.
It started, not to interrupt, Coach, but
Kevin Jack.
It started with Kevin, yeah. I feel like Kevin took it to another level, and then after Kevin, Camacho, Johnny Garcia, then Camacho, and then, AJ, RJ, and now it continues to go forward. Matty Lopes, even though he's going to Blair, is a Danbury guy who's a superstar.
Wow, Matty Lopes is from Danbury too.
The Danbury guy, yeah, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
Blair now, he decided to go his own separate way as well. But, it's great. AJ, I have a question for you about youth also is because I have a lot more stuff to get into when you get a little older, and I knew you a little bit better. But, I know your dad pretty well. I know your mom pretty well. They're both great people, nice. They seem very laid back to me. Your mom loves the crap out of you, and your dad's a good dude. I don't see them, and this is just in my head, I don't know. I didn't see them as being like the youth wrestling parents that were like, come on, AJ, get tougher and go beat this guy up. Like, how was your parents' relationship to you and wrestling as you were coming up?
So really, my mom and dad, they just really like to see me compete. Like, it didn't matter what it was. They just like to see me, like, have fun and go at it with anyone, really. So even till this day, my dad doesn't know any wrestling moves. He just knows like maybe a chicken wing or something like that. Like he doesn't know anything about wrestling. As long as I go out there and I have fun, he's all for it. He'll sit there and watch me all day.
I like that, and he does love it though. I've seen your mom get nervous and stuff, and your dad and your dad loves it. Like and like AJ said, Coach, I could see the genuine love that his dad has for him. It's more about that than it is about wrestling, which I think it should be. You know, I think that's how it should be. It might be harder for me with Luca, and it might be harder for AJ with his baby one day, and you with your kids, Coach, because we really know it. I might try to keep myself away from it a little bit, but it's a little different, I think. You know, and AJ has his brother Logan who wrestles as well. How old was Logan when he got into it? Did he get into it right after you or no?
Yeah, so I started in first grade, and he kind of started, it was like kindergarten or something like that, because he would come to the practice room every day because he just wanted to watch, and so he just ended up practicing eventually.
Where's he, Danbury?
Yeah,
Coach,
he's a junior right now.
You never met
I don't
Logan?
think I've ever met him.
You'll meet him. He's been at the club when you've been at the club. Me and Logan are kind of mortal enemies. So.
So what year is Logan?
Junior.
He's very similar to AJ, but he didn't buy in maybe as quickly as AJ did. He's starting to now, but he's super talented. He could be really, really good. Like, you know, he's a little bit late start compared to where AJ was, but that doesn't mean this year, hopefully he wins Connecticut's as long as they have Connecticut's and stuff. But, you know, by senior year, I think he could do a lot of damage. But so let's keep going through your youth wrestling. So I met you when you were in middle school. And by the time I met you in middle school, you were good. Obviously you weren't what you are now, but you were good. Like I knew right away, I'm like, this kid is the real deal. How did that happen? Like, how'd you go from that guy that was losing in youth all the time and you weren't even in the club really yet, you just got into the club. So I know you made bigger jumps once you got into the club, but you still did a big jump from first, second grade to like seventh grade. How did that happen?
So really, I feel like a lot of the youth guys started getting really competitive. Like at the time there was me and Javon Pryor were kind of the same weight, and Jacob and RJ were kind of the same weight. So they started getting better, and me and Javon would kind of just watch and like what are they doing? Like how are they getting so good? And then we started getting more competitive, and then it turned into like we all just kind of started getting better, and we didn't even realize it. And then we would go compete at states, like youth states and stuff like that, and we would go from like not placing one year to being the number one, number two guy every year. Like, and then from there on out, it was kind of just like just keep competing, keep practicing, and then really they started getting better, made everyone else better.
Mentality. I feel like that's just mental. That was like, these guys are good. Now I want to be good. That kid he mentioned, Javon, is that how you say his name, Javon?
Yeah, Javon.
That kid came to the club a little bit when RJ and AJ first came to the club. And I remember very well when that kid came and those three came. That kid was good. Like, he was really, really good, super talented. And not to put that kid's business on the streets, but he got into some trouble, hung out with the wrong crowd. I think he got arrested. And a lot of things happened that he shouldn't have done, right? And what impresses me a lot about RJ and AJ is that was their best bud.
Yeah.
It was one of their best. That was part of the crew. And he went this way, and those two still went that way. And I think that shows a lot about AJ's mentality, because he could easily say, that's my buddy. Like, he's going to hang out with that crew. I'm going to go hang out with that crew because I'm comfortable with this kid, and that's what I do. And I think that says at a young age, AJ now, of course, would make the right decision, but he's 19, 18 years old. But as a 13-year-old, to be able to make that decision, I think says a lot about, one, it says a lot about your values and what's happening at home, right, with your parents. I think that's something for sure. And two, it says something about your own, goals and what you were thinking. And you remember that time, AJ? What made you decide, hey, I'm going to go this way, I'm not going to go that way?
I don't really know. I always remembered him being really good. We would always sign up for the same tournament, so we were wrestling the same, me and him, finals every time. He would always beat me. It was kind of just like, how is that making him better? It was really hurting him in a sense, and that's when I started realizing, like, I was creeping up on him. Like, I was getting pretty good going into middle school, and that's when he started kind of like, I don't know, falling a little bit. So it was more of like, I'm getting really good. Like, there's no reason to hurt it now.
Yeah, Coach, you would have been impressed with this kid though. Very talented.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very
Very
good.
good.
And what would he be right now? A freshman also in college?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's in his future. But so now I meet you. You're in middle school, coach. And I remember this, and AJ, you might have to correct me a little bit because I know a lot about you from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade because that's when I really worked with you the most, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember you coming into middle school. I remember you, RJ, being a little silly but good kids, and I would be like, "What is going on? These guys just don't shut the hell up." And I remember somebody telling me that you guys kind of got kicked out of the Danbury program for a second because you guys were talking a lot and being silly, and then you came over to us, and you guys fell in line though. And I remember we went to Pop and Flow, and I don't know if it was your 7th or 8th grade year, but you wrestled on the A team, high school, for a match.
Yeah.
You didn't wrestle every match with us, but you started a couple of the matches. And I remember looking over to John, and I knew you then, but I didn't know you as well. And I'm like, John, this kid's the real deal. Do you remember like that, coming into the club and maybe the change of culture from, Danbury's a good program, but the change of culture from club wrestling to that, all that stuff?
So for some reason, a lot of places in Danbury, there's no joking around. And me, Jake, RJ, we were always like, it's fun to us. We never really saw it as like
Work.
Yeah, never worked for us. So we would kind of go in, have a good time, but we were always ready to kind of compete when it came live or technique or something like that. And so they kicked us off, and then going to John's, we were pretty much there full time now. So we go into yeah.
Imagine. Look
Like,
at this.
every time AJ was in our room, it was awesome.
We'll get into that. AJ was great, and coach, I'll say that when I
He
first
was a young kid.
But when I met him as a middle schooler, he still was great. He wasn't ever a bad kid to me. Every once in a while, they'd be silly, and I'd be like, guys, like, what are we doing? But like,
Yeah,
it was
fun,
never,
loving.
yeah, it was never disrespectful. And I was going to ask you though, because there was a difference, AJ, because from what I heard with the Danbury thing, you guys got kicked off, whatever, and you guys were listening to coach. But when I had you in practice, there was a couple of times I'd be like, guys, stop talking. But it was never bad. I feel like you guys kind of fell into line once you got into the club. Was there a difference in the atmosphere maybe that made you guys kind of say, okay, let's take this a little more serious, or was it just you guys were learning a lot, so you were having more fun? Like, what was it?
Yeah. So I feel like middle school, like in-house or travel team or whatever it is, you show the same moves, like half Nelson, bars, because there's still new guys who kind of join the travel team that don't really know much, but they still want to go to big tournaments. And when I came to the club, me and RJ, I guess, kind of got lucky because there was we were always with the high school guys, so we would always see, like, that's the time when Adam was still there. I think Johnny Garcia or something. There was like those kids still there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always so high there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would always see them like having fun and stuff, and it made us seem like it was like, yeah, wrestling should be fun. But then when you heard the room go quiet, it was like you don't want to be the one talking there.
Yeah, I hope that the new crop of kids listen to this interview, and I said that about the Jacob interview, because they're not you guys yet. Yeah, hopefully they will. And I'm not talking about wins and losses, right? Like, I think that we lost a lot of seniors last year, and I think there's a little bit of a leadership issue, maybe in a sense. And I think the pandemic didn't help. I was gone for 4 months, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I do think that does make a difference. And John had to do it all by himself when he was doing it, but you guys understood, and Jacob Camacho said it the same thing that you just said. When the room got quiet, he understood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these kids don't get it, and we were at practice the other day, and I was like, keep trying to play with me. Keep playing with me like I'm a joke, because I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that I have to act like that, because with you guys, we would have a great time, and then when it was time to get serious, you guys just fell into line. And I kind of, I think the kids need to realize what you realize, that I think at a young age, is that John and me and anybody else at that club, Khalid or whoever else is there, Alex, our best interest, your best interest is at our heart, right? And I think they need to realize that, and kind of think, some of these kids think they're little superstars, and they don't realize that, the AJs of the world have already kind of walked through there and demolished the place, and you guys aren't crap yet, not to be mean, but like, it's not the same, but so in high school, middle school, you were great. And in 8th grade, you in Connecticut, coach, they can't move up, so you didn't do any wrestling.
Which isn't bad. It isn't a bad thing.
No,
Nah, I liked it.
Well, I think it's fair. If every school does it,
then it's fine.
hey, go to ninth grade, then it's fine. If you're like in Section 1 in New York, like really, we're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to move kids up, but other schools can. So to me, it's like, why is this kid getting the advantage of like getting experience of varsity and we can't do that? That's annoying. But if they set a whole state rule that you can't go until ninth grade, I'm fine with that, you know. But what I was going to ask you, AJ, what was the transition from middle school wrestling to high school wrestling your freshman year at Danbury?
Well, I really just looked at it like I was a fresh meat. I was nobody yet. I was still the young kid who people are going to go out there and say he's a freshman, maybe not try as hard or something like that. So I really just wanted to go out there and like put it on everyone I wrestled and just score as many points as I can.
Yeah. And what was your result your freshman? Because I don't remember. And that's being
I won like the FCX. I lost double L's in state opens in the finals to the same kid, Tim Kane.
Okay.
And then
I went to Hofstra, right?
Yeah.
But that's as a freshman, you took second in the state.
Yeah, I took third at New England's, and then pretty much that was it.
You know, AJ made me look like an idiot though, because the next year, his sophomore year, we were at Eastern States, and AJ was there and stuff, and I was telling everybody, which was stupid because I couldn't, you know, I'm not very I could be superstitious, I guess, but like I must have jinxed it because I was like, no. I was like telling like the Harrison coach, I'm like, no, this kid from Danbury, watch him. He's freaking good. Watch him. And AJ did good. I think he lost in the round of 12 as a sophomore, but like defensively pinned twice or something crazy. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, you know, the last time.
Did you ever win at Eastern States?
No, I didn't go my senior year.
Oh, you didn't go?
Yeah.
I remember you were up in the semis junior year.
And that's in the state finals.
Yeah. Yeah. But he kind of caught you in a weird predicament, right?
AJ beats that kid 10 times. That was the one.
Yeah, and then you pounded him in States, which was great.
And not to bring up bad memories, and we'll talk about the States this year, because I think there's a lot to say about your state tournament this year and about how you handled it. I mean, your maturity, you know, was great. But I think that's another one that's 9 out of 10. AJ, and unfortunately, the one, because I got into an argument with John Shortfager, and we'll get into it a little bit, but it was, who you got, AJ or this kid? I'm like, I just didn't major him. We're not even close.
Yeah.
We're not in the same planet. And I still to this day believe that. But we'll get to there later. So now let's talk about, you know, 10th grade, 9th grade, you're in the club. And Coach, I'll tell you, when AJ was a 10th grader, there was a group of kids that were older, the seniors. That was like the Camachos. Who else was in that group? Grippy, Jacob Ferreira, Grant Cuomo. There was a really good group of seniors when AJ was a sophomore. But AJ was in that group still. Yeah. So once that group graduated, I, as a coach, depended a lot on AJ and RJ to be leaders in the room. So I like to think I know wrestling pretty well, but there was situations, and by the time he was a senior, it was even more so this. But as an 11th grader, there was things that AJ was really good at. There was things that RJ was really good at. So I would depend on these guys to show certain things, right? And I would depend on these guys to coach. I would depend on these guys to set an example. And I would depend on them for me to check me in a sense. If I felt like, I'm like, how do you think this feels? I would ask AJ with full confidence that he was going to give me an honest answer and tell me exactly how that felt. He made me a better coach, right?
You said that a million times about AJ.
Right? Yeah. AJ's
times you said that to me.
RJ's up there too, and we'll talk to RJ on Sunday, but I would put Jacob and AJ on the top for me. Because AJ I didn't work with as much as I worked with AJ. I worked with RJ a lot. You know, I have a very good relationship with RJ. I love that kid, and he's great. But AJ being the same size as me pretty much, like we would wrestle live a lot. We were together a lot. I guess I'm all over the place with this, AJ, but what made you kind of get that understanding of wrestling where it wasn't like, okay, Coach Andy said, I'm going to go hit high crotches. You didn't just do that, and you're never disrespectful. You would hit your high crotch, and say we were working on an Iranian finish, you would feel something a little different, and you would call me over, and we would talk about it, we'd figure it out. What made you kind of like take a deep dive into it rather than just listen to the basic moves, if that makes sense, if that question makes sense?
So really, like you said, as a sophomore and all those guys were seniors, I always wanted to be with the best guys, like surrounding myself with the best guys. You're going to be one of the best guys. So I really saw Camacho, Grippy, Adam, like all those guys were really making strides. For most of them ranked state champs, state placers, all that stuff, and I was still my sophomore year. I kind of went on a downfall my sophomore year, so I really wanted to be involved with those guys. And just wrestling live with those guys, there was a lot of like I've hit a high crotch a million times, but say I hit a high crotch on Grippy or Adam, they would either stuff my head a different way, or they would just I couldn't finish on anything. So that's when I really started to feel out, like, if he does this with my head, I'm gonna have to go out the back door, or I'm gonna have to Iranian finish next time, or just switch my hips. Anything that was different.
Yeah. You know, Coach, his 10th grade year, that time when those guys were still there, I was working with AJ a lot, but I was primarily probably wrestling with Grippy and Grant and Jay Ferreira that year. I was with Jacob a lot. But I remember, AJ doesn't remember this, I'm sure, but he was a 10th grader. It was probably one of the first times I really went live with him. Like, I really went live with him, not just like playing around with them. And that was in the old room. We were by the weight room section. That's where we were wrestling. And AJ scored. And I think I kind of played it off as like, oh, he's just a little kid. He kind of scored. But in my head, I'm like, holy shit. You know, excuse me.
Was it a misdirection?
No, I don't think. I can't really remember how he scored, but I think it was more like I kind of took him lightly in the sense, but he was so strong. He was so powerful. His hips were good. He like moved well. He reacted well. And I remember saying in my head as a 10th grade AJ, I was like, oof, this kid is going to be something, you know, and I knew
I remember you telling me that you're like, oh, you're only a 10th grade. You don't want me going full blown on you yet.
I might have been going full blown. So, so the secret's
that
out.
was a defense mechanism.
Yeah,
because you know, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like, I think he shocked me. Like, I didn't think he was as good as maybe he was. And I knew AJ was a hardworking, a good kid at that time, but like, I didn't know he was there already. And at that point, it was like game on. You know, not game on of me competing with AJ, of course. Game on of like, let's try to make AJ as good as possible because this kid's really good. Like, this kid's tough. And it's your skill, AJ. It wasn't your skill that I noticed. It was your relentlessness. And I don't want to be cliche in saying your relentlessness. I want to be, you say relentlessness. Like, if I got on a high crotch or something on you, it wasn't like you just fell over, right? Some kids that are really good will still just fall over because they think they're supposed to when they're wrestling their coach, you know. But AJ did it. And so right then and there, I'm like, there's something different about this kid. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but he's going to be successful. And lo and behold, you were very successful. And your junior year was a really, really good year. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
My junior year? Yeah. So
you can talk about your sophomore year when you were getting good and you took me down and you run my face in the mat probably and you bullied me a little bit, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, really, my sophomore year is when, like, so I was wrestling Anthony, and that's kind of when I realized, like, a bunch of the older guys graduated. There wasn't too many guys in my weight. So wrestling with Anthony, I was like, I better take advantage of this going into junior year because he's beating the shit out of me right now. And as long as I keep wrestling with him, I'm bound to get better. And then really going into junior year and making that switch to Iona. So now John was my full-time coach. Anthony was pretty much my full-time coach as well, going to Greeley, going to the club. I was with Anthony, John, even Coach DeBellis. I was with all those guys, and it was just a good environment. And it was really, it wasn't like I was switching up coaches. It was I had the same coaches that give me different looks and feels in different positions, which made me better.
Yeah, I mean, and to touch on the Greeley thing, and there's a lot of things we could talk about because I talked about this in Matt's interview a lot as well. But again, and I feel like I'm like a broken record because I keep saying that the kids that were really successful out of the club tend to be really good kids. And AJ takes the cake on that, you know, and so Matt Kelly was great too. They both were really good. But like AJ came to Greeley a lot because it helped him, right? But at the same time, it helped us just as much, if not more, for him to come to us, right, with the other kids in the room. And AJ, you know, you never had an ego where if I said, hey, go help Izzy for 10 minutes with, you know, this setup or whatever it may have been. You know, when the girls would come up to the club, my TAF girls would come up to the club, hey, go show Deja a good leg lace for 10 minutes. Never a problem. Boom, did it. Come down to the city. Work out with the girls with me down in the city. Never a problem. Come down to the city. Come to my school. Work with my kids with special needs. Never a problem. Um, I think to me, AJ, and I said the same thing to Matt. So again, I don't take it as like, oh, you're just saying the same thing you said to Matt, because it's true for both of you. I think that stuff is more important than your state title, than your future NCAA title, which you're going to get.
Mhm.
All these things, because wrestling eventually will end, and you prove that you're a good kid and you care. And to me, that shows that I did my job. Your parents did their job. John and anybody else that affected you did their job. What do you say before we get into more wrestling stuff? What made you want to do that? Like help the girls, come to my school, help the Greeley kids that were not nearly close to your level of wrestling yet. Like what kind of made you do that, if that makes sense?
So that kind of takes me back to like my youth days when in these like the girls aren't youth, right? They're in high school or whatever, but during my youth days,
Yeah.
it was a lot of the high school guys would come and help me, and I was just a little kid. Like they didn't know who I was gonna be when I was older. They weren't like, this kid's gonna be good. I barely even won any matches when I was younger, but they would still come into the practice room and kind of help me. They any tournament we had in Danbury, the wrestling team was required to come and watch. So it was almost like the high school team really cared about the youth and really wanted them to get better. And so then when I got older, it's kind of just giving back to the people who gave back to me, really. Like, even though I didn't know the girls that well, but I just knew that they seemed to like wrestling a lot. I mean, they're in this little practice room. Probably the smallest practice room I've seen in a really long time. But they're all packed in there wrestling, and it kind of just made me feel like they really wanted to be there. It wasn't like no one forced them to be there, obviously.
Coach, his first day in that TAF room, and again, he came to my school. He worked with the Greeley kids. He worked with the TAF girls whenever they were at the club. But I brought him to the TAF room with Matt Kelly, like we talked about in the last interview, right? And the first practice there, Sierra, who you met, who's great. I love her. She's an awesome kid. Didn't have a partner. I said, AJ, go with her. Boom. Went with her, helped her the whole time, took it past what I was talking about, like was coaching her other things that I wasn't even, a lot of kids, AJ, maybe you don't realize this too because you're a young guy. And, it's almost better that you don't realize that what you're doing is so great. But like a lot of people that are successful in a sport, it doesn't have to be only wrestling. If they make them work with a kid that is nowhere near the level as them, they feel like they're bigger and better than that. Right. And you didn't do that. You totally made her feel comfortable and you helped her. And I think they really appreciate that. And not for nothing, coach. And I know this might be a weird turn, but it's not like they didn't think AJ was a cute guy either. So I would come to AJ and Quincy. I had to be like, girl, shut the hell up about AJ and Quincy already. I'm going to screen record that and send that to them. That would really embarrass them. But, and before we pass this topic, AJ, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit like I put Matt Kelly. We got to get Deja back to practice. You know Deja,
Oh,
right?
my God.
So let me tell you
something
quick. I want you to give her a little speech in a second, but let me paint this picture for you. Awesome job. Going to practice with AJ, getting better. All of a sudden, coronavirus hits. She disappears. But I'm doing Zooms with her. She's coming on. She's doing a great job. Quarantine ends. I do some runs with her, crushing it. Quarantine ends. I come to Animals to work out with you. She comes with me. She's doing a good job. She got a job, and she's doing good in school, which are super important things, and I'm proud of her for that. But I'm fighting to get her back to wrestling practice. What do you say about
that. Really, I mean, I get that she has a job and stuff, but it's just she seemed like she was really having fun with it. So I mean, just getting any type of workouts, not even just like forcing yourself to go to practice. If she like would want to text you or something, like I know you would go work out with her anytime in a heartbeat. It's not just come to practice, you have to be at practice. It's if you want to work out, I'm there for you. I'll help you in any way. So it's not like she doesn't have to feel like she's being forced to do something she doesn't want to. It's just get a workout.
AJ, would you say
get better?
A guy that was going through it, right? And I think this is good for every kid to hear because from your perspective, I think it's important from a guy that's successful. But I don't know, coach, and you could jump in on this as well. I feel like for me as a 33-year-old, I know I look only 23, but I'm actually, for the people listening, I'm 33. I know, hard to believe. But don't smile about that. That's bullshit. Wrestling's done a lot for me, right? Outside of wins and losses, like I think my work ethic comes from wrestling. I think the way I treat my son is from wrestling in a sense. Like my parents are unbelievable. I have great parents, luckily, like you. But wrestling is a factor in a lot of things I do. When I come home from work and I'm tired, but I haven't seen Luke all day, I could easily say, Care, I worked all day. Let me go relax or whatever. But I grab him right away, right? I think that's a little bit of me loving him, but it's more of my mentality that I've learned through this sport. I think kids, and this includes Deja, but I think this is a broader thing. I think kids need to realize that wrestling, isn't about learning, Matt Kelly brought this up, learning a defense to a shin wizard, right? Because when you're 35, that's not going to matter anymore. That's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's more about, how tough are you going to be? How hard are you going to work? If you want something, are you going to go after it because you could do it, but are you going to be able to? When things get hard, are you going to make an excuse and blame others? Or are you going to figure it out yourself? And for me, I'm nowhere near, and Coach Sabellas, you're the same, where we were both successful wrestlers, but we're nowhere near you, AJ. But that doesn't mean the sport didn't do a lot for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
People need to realize that it's way bigger than your state title, your national title. They're great. And there's nothing more than I would love to see AJ Kovacs on ESPN winning a national title. I would be so friggin' happy.
It wouldn't be on ESPN. I mean, it might be there. We'll be there in the stands.
Well, no, I'm saying be on ESPN. But for him, it'd be cool that he's on ESPN. But I'll be more happy when I'm 50 and AJ's 35 and he has a family and he's being a good dad and he has a good job and he's providing for his family. I'm like, man, that kid, he's doing a good thing there. That to me is more important. And I think you learn those lessons through wrestling. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. That actually reminded me of I think it was Ben Askren or Max or something like that. They came to the club, and after it was all like said and done, we wrestled, had a nice clinic or whatever. We were all talking in like that little circle, and he asked everyone like, why do you hit a high crotch? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And there was all these questions, why? And everyone kind of just sat there like, like I have no idea why. And that kind of just stuck with me because it made me realize like, I actually have no idea like if I was being put on the spot, like why I would do this. But then I kind of just thought about it just because, it was something interesting to me. And it was really just, I did it to wrestle because I love wrestling, but also the people, the community, the afterwards, like seeing you, seeing Coach DeBellis, like there's just so many people after the fact. Because I feel like in wrestling, everyone comes back. There's no, you just leave the sport and you're never connected to it again. You always see people coming back, watching, like all that stuff.
That's a good point. It's true.
We get the best seat.
Yeah.
Coach Sabella, so jump in there on that because AJ pretty much said a similar thing, like, why do I do this? But we're all back. We all love it. Wrestling's weird.
It's probably
it's the hardest sport, right? But we're all obsessed with it at the same time. Once you get in deep with it, it's like you can't leave it. It's a weird thing.
I mean, I dedicated. I was thinking about it. Like when I lived in Newburgh, I wouldn't get home till 7 o'clock every night. I mean, all the way through from November to March, pretty much.
Yeah, you have three kids at home.
Yeah, that was a lot of time. Now it's better because I'm closer, and we don't have wrestling. It's weird.
But my question for Coach Sabellas, talking about what I was just talking about with AJ, do you think there's anything better for Nikki, Jake, and possibly even Lily than the sport of wrestling? To help hold them?
No. I mean, they've been around it for a while now. I just hope the really room gets back open. So
yeah, but Nikki, I can already see with Nikki, the effects that wrestling's having on him, and he's going to keep going forward. But I could see it in him. There's something about the sport. But
we were sitting at dinner, and Nikki's Dad, I don't really like the Russian. I'd rather pass the elbow. And, sitting there hand fighting at dinner, and people in the restaurant are like, what are these guys doing? But
they don't get it. I'm
That's
watching.
Elbow pass guy. That's Anthony.
I'm an
Big
elbow
elbow pass
guy.
guy.
AJ's a Russian guy. Although,
I am.
I hope Tyler listens to this because I've been getting, I'm tired. I'm old. So when I want to get him, I just get a Russian on him and I just bully him. I just say, no, I'm taking this now.
the
But
thing
Lucas,
is, you got these guys coming up now. They're going to be the new Anthony.
yes, I need them. Because I'm tired.
Believe me, I've been through that.
But listen to this. Tell me if this makes sense, AJ, because I wanted to talk about this a little bit. And if you don't want to go too far into it, that's perfectly fine. Me and AJ are similar, I feel like, where school wasn't always the easiest for us. For me, when I was in high school, I'll speak on myself. I had a big IEP. I struggled in a lot of classes. Things didn't come easy to me. Wrestling came easier to me, but not, I still had to work really hard for it. AJ, on the other hand, school wasn't always the easiest thing for you in the world, but to me in wrestling, you're brilliant for a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
You're very smart. You picked up things really quick. So obviously you're a very, very, very smart guy. Would you say that there's a chance that, and I tell my kids all the time, the Greeley kids and even the Empire guys, that if you don't find a way to have fun with it, it's hard to learn, right? So if you're in school, you're not enjoying it as much. It might be a little bit hard to learn, but you showed me, AJ, how brilliant you are, how you were able to interpret wrestling moves. So you're a very smart guy. Do you think there's something to be said about, enjoying something that you're trying to learn rather than just forcing yourself to try to learn it?
Yeah. Honestly, school is not my thing. I hate the school.
Yeah,
I still hate school, honestly. But
Me too.
I just think.
I like it.
I don't.
Yeah, sure.
No, I mean, being a student is terrible. Being a teacher is great.
Oh yeah.
Being a student.
I just think that in school it was always just everyone doesn't want to be there. So there's no like in class. There's no having fun. There's no joking. There's nothing. You just have to sit there and listen to your teacher for an hour, go on and on and on. and anytime you talk, it's educational, which I never really liked. But then in the wrestling room, you're with your friends. You can joke around, have fun, and really you can mix it up. It's not always this is the way to do it. This is the right way. And being with Anthony will show a move. Me and him will spend 10 minutes on one move just because there's so many different variations of it that we need to figure out in one practice, or maybe we'll say after practice, and we still can't figure something out. So we just keep coming back to it, and there's so many different things that can be added on to it. It just makes it fun.
Do you know what's interesting about what you just said, though, AJ? We did that. First of all, like I said a million times, and Coach Sabella said, I've said a million times that you made me a better coach because, like, those things were important for me. Like, because it was a good, good give and take. But it's also weird to me how people's brains work, right? Because when we were going over some of those techniques, I'm like, Jesus Christ, AJ's friggin' smart. Like, how did he figure that out? He is super smart. Like, that didn't even register in my brain. And this is gonna get like, we're going way deep right now, but like, I think that's a problem with, education in our country because like, people learn differently. And I think me and AJ are on that same, I got kicked out of college. I talked about that in my interview. My first freshman year in college, I got kicked out. But when I got back in and I realized what was on the line and what I needed to do, I learned how to learn a little bit differently, if that makes sense. And I got really good grades from then on out. I graduated grad school with a 3.6. So I don't think I ever was stupid per se. I think I just wasn't going about it the right way, if that makes sense. Because I very much believe that AJ is very intelligent, right? And then school is hard, but like the way that your brain works in wrestling, it's a weird thing that shows people's capabilities. And I kind of love it how we could see that in this sport, probably more than you could see it in like a football and basketball. What would you say about that, Coach Sabellas?
Well, I think AJ, the way that you guys approach the sport of wrestling, opened my eyes to a different way of looking at things. I mean, I remember going through. We were training for Empire State games, and I was training with this guy, Mike Cromer, and we were just playing, and that was the first real time where you just opened up and played wrestling instead of, this drill for 15 goes, and this drill for this, and this drill for that, and this drill. It was just, okay, practice is over. Take a shower, go home. Now, but if you take that time and you you think about what's going on. And, you know, our coach in college used to say different strokes for different folks. And he always resonated with me because he was a philosopher. And I like that angle of the game. I like the philosophy of it. But then when you think about AJ and how he moves and, well, what if I just turn my hip this way or, put my palm up and see how it feels? That's a different way of looking at it. And I think that's the better way to look at it. Because you can drill and kill all you want, but it's not going to be – you're not going to get as much out of the sport.
Coach, I've never seen kids make jumps like AJ and James. I've been coaching for now 10 years. I know that on the grand scheme of things, that's not really a long time. But I've coached a lot of kids in that span, right? And some really good kids. But I haven't seen kids make a jump like those guys. And RJ, too, in this statement.
It's phenomena.
They really think about it. And that's when I started seeing their jumps. And same with Jacob Ferrer and, like, Aaron Walker, Matt Schreiber. Like, they didn't do it maybe as much as these guys did, but they did it a lot. And they made a big jump when they started really thinking deeply about what they were doing. It wasn't just like, okay, today I'm going to go. And even my college experience, when I first got to Hofstra, AJ probably knows this guy, and I know you do, Coach, but Tom Ryan's a coach at Ohio State now. My freshman year, he was at Hofstra, and he kind of changed my outlook a little bit. Like, he was very much more on the philosophy side of it, more thinking, more deep thinking, where Coach Shiflett, who, isn't a bad guy, Hofstra was successful after that, but that was a lot of Tom Ryan's recruits, but we were successful. But we would come into practice and be like, all right, guys, get up and jog. And go hit high crotches. And the motivation wasn't really there, as much maybe as when Coach Ryan was there. And there was more story behind it. There was more, I don't want to use the word theatrics, but there was more happening, and there was more thinking, and there was more like self-evaluation, and there was more like things like that. And I think AJ, and AJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but AJ's his biggest critic, right? Like, he would evaluate himself probably more than anybody else, because I felt some of his losses with him, but I didn't feel what he was feeling at the moment, but I seen it, and you could feel it when it's happening, right? What would you say about that, AJ? And, like, you put all this work in, and I remember, like, yesterday, the Empire Duels, I think it was the summer of your junior year, you're, like, beating this kid, and the kid was tough. He was a good wrestler, but you're beating him, and then you got defensively pinned. And I could just see, like, the anguish. That's a good word. Did I say that right?
Anguish, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, thanks. I could see it in your face, What do you think that is? Do you think that's more because you worked your tail off, or do you think it was because you're a competitor and you hate to lose?
I really think it was just because I hate to lose. I mean, I kind of went into those duels probably not in the right mindset. I mean, I was probably just thinking, like, oh, it's Empire Duels. But I was beating the kid up pretty good, and then I just wasn't on top of my game. But it was in a cradle. I cradled the kid, and then
I mean, that's like
hurt myself, whatever.
Cradled him, and your back touched the mat, and
it was a bad call. Even I lost my shit.
Yeah, you know what? That's the dumbest rule I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah.
But AJ's notorious.
A lot of kids
I've seen AJ get pinned 3 times, like in offensive positions.
That's a little silly. I don't think I ever defensively pinned myself.
I'm a 3-timer.
That's great. I was thinking that too, because I remember earlier in the interview you said, yeah, you got twice, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's a notorious defensive pinner guy.
He's a pinner.
When I lost big.
It's not a defense. It's a defensive pin. It's an offensive. Oh, it's defensive for the other guy.
Look, I don't even want to get crazy, because that's not even what I meant. I just meant, like, I saw how upset you were, and I saw how much you cared. I know Empire.
That's a crappy way to lose, though. I mean,
Empire Duels don't mean shit. Like, I don't care.
Right.
But, like, there was a lot of things, like, he handled it the way he should. Like, Super 32 the year before that, you had a takedown. I think it was in the quarters, and you got totally screwed. But you handled it the way you were going to handle it. But I'm going to talk about one of my more proud moments as a coach for you. There's a lot of moments that make me proud, especially the outside of wrestling stuff that you did. But Aaron Moore senior year, Coach Sabellis, AJ's junior year when he won the state title.
Yeah.
We were able to go into that ice rink area because we were waiting for, I had to adjust the camera.
Yeah, it was a tight match.
So we were able to go in there, right? And as much as I love AJ and as much as I worked with AJ, I don't want to step on other coaches' toes, right? Although John is the one coaching. You still got the other guy. What's your other coach of Minos' name again? What was the name? Straley.
Tom Straley.
Very nice guy.
Great guy.
Good dude. Yeah, really good dude. So I don't want to be screaming over him. You know, I'm trying to like play my position the best I can, but you know, it was a closer match, so of course I'm saying things, and I'm trying to, you know, be respectful, but it's hard. And AJ wins, right? And I just remember feeling that feeling because you should have won Easterns too. And that's not like I'm a
Mhm.
mad at you thing. It's like I knew you were better than that kid. So that feeling of like it's almost a weight coming off my shoulders because I know weight was coming off your shoulders. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And not to be corny or whatever, but you can't. You finished, you shook hands, you slapped everybody 5, and then we had a hug, right? And in that
Yeah.
moment, I'm like, AJ did it, and that felt really friggin' good for me. And I don't think kids realize that we live and die on a lot of these results too. You know, they hurt really bad when the kids, because you see what the kid goes through to get there. You know, so it hurts really bad when they don't get what they inspired to get, but it feels really good when they do get what they inspired to get. And that moment felt really good for me. And then it continued, right? He did such a good job, and unfortunately had an injury his senior year. But he went to Flow Nationals. Coach Tabellis, he tech faulted Cal Valencia, who's ranked number 1 in the country right now. He tech faulted him in the finals. And I remember I was at Gotham Duels with the girls, and I made them watch his final. Like all of them, they had to watch it. There was no excuse; they were going to watch it. And I remember texting AJ purposely, saying like, "AJ, you trust me? Why don't they trust me? You just won a national championship."
Yeah, I do remember that.
I remember saying that and trying to use that example. But you know, again, AJ, the wins and losses to me aren't as important. But how did those things feel? Like winning that state title in New York, kind of getting that monkey off your back, and being the kid that beat you at Eastern States, and then carrying that on to a dominant performance at nationals, for nationals, where you always did well at national tournaments, but you never get over the hump of winning it, right? And you did it.
Mm.
So like, how did all of that feel? Like, how did that make you feel? That stuff.
So I really felt that, like, I always say this. I always say Anthony's like the undercover coach. He's never really, he doesn't go to tournaments. He doesn't go to Virginia Beach. He doesn't go anywhere. But he'll pretty much never miss a practice. He's always in the practice room. And then really, when after I won that states, I don't know. I've never really performed well in front of a crowd. So after I won that, I kind of felt like maybe I can do this. Maybe it's not as hard as I think. So then I go to Virginia Beach. I had a really good showing actually at Virginia Beach. I took second, lost a match I shouldn't have, really close match. And then I think the week after, something like that, was Flow Nationals. And I remember John was like, oh man, like you just wrestled, like do you want to go? It was a really hard tournament, stuff like that. I was like, I have to avenge myself. I can't just go out on a loss like that and not go compete again. So I remember I was working, and it wasn't as hard probably as I should have been going, but I just wrestled a national tournament, so I was pretty much, I felt like I was peaked for that. So I didn't really need to go too hard to train for flow. So I was really getting my technique down, my transitions, kind of just cleaning up what I feel like I messed up on at Virginia Beach. And then there at Flow, I kind of really just let it fly. I've never won a national, so I was kind of just thinking anything I do right now is better than I did before. So,
But AJ, just for the people that are listening, hopefully people listen to this and they get this far. But you know, to put in perspective, Flow is probably the first or second toughest tournament in the country for a high school wrestler. It's up there. It's one of the best tournaments there is. And AJ won it, which is an unbelievable accomplishment, but he tech fault his kid in the finals. I mean, that just shows, you know, it's pure dominance. And what people see is they see I don't want to say the flashiness of it, but for lack of better words, the flashiness of him going out there and dominating, right? Like, this kid's good. He probably gets the best training. He probably does this. He probably does. I mean, he does get really good training. But people didn't see that before that tournament, like I said before, he was in the South Bronx with me, right? And he was helping other people. And then he would still get his workout in. Like, I think there was a couple of practices he would come in there. He would help the Lexi Bells and the Dejas and the Siras and the Hindas and whoever else was in the room at the time. But me and AJ would stay an extra half hour after practice, and he'd be in that dingy-ass room in the South Bronx because he wanted to get a workout in. He wanted to help. Definitely wanted to help because I could have got that workout with him in Somers. So he wanted to help. But he's like, I need to get my workout in too. And me and him would wrestle in this dingy room, and he's there when no one's looking, right? Nobody ever would have heard that unless I just said that right now, right? It wasn't like he was doing that to, be a big, bad, tough guy going to the South Bronx and saying, I'm helping people out. He wasn't doing it for other people's approval. He was doing it for him. He was doing it for me, helping people out, the right stuff. But I was really glad to see the work that he put in paid off. It's kind of similar to Camacho when he won Super 32. It's like Jacob's very similar to AJ, where they both really worked for it. They earned it. You get what you earned, and they earned those championships. I believe in my heart of hearts that AJ earned 2 state titles, and unfortunate circumstances kind of got in the way there. But it's also a learning experience. Would you say that your season maybe not ending the way you wanted to, AJ, fired you up for the post college career and everything that followed?
Yeah. So obviously there's no excuses, but my senior year I got hurt. Really, what was it? Third match of my season, dislocated my elbow, pretty much tore everything in my elbow, and I still really wanted to compete, but it was kind of at what risk, So I didn't really get to go to some of these high-level tournaments that I should have been going to prepare for states. Like, I didn't go to Easterns. I went to, like, some random local dual meet or local tournament, and I wasn't really getting the competition. I was just getting matches, weigh-ins, stuff like that. So, obviously, going into states, I knew it was going to be hard. I knew there was some competition, but I don't know. I just really kind of felt like personally I wasn't prepared. I didn't do all the things I could have like I did my junior year.
I mean, tell me if this makes sense, and Coach Chabelles, you jump in on this too. Wrestling with AJ as often as I did, we wrestled a lot leading up to states. We wrestled right before the state finals. And I wrestled with Dennis Robin a lot, not as much as AJ, but I wrestled with Dennis Robin a lot. And I love Dennis, and Dennis is a great wrestler. And this is there's no disrespect to Dennis. But I don't think I've ever seen Dennis Robin take down AJ, ever. They were just different. And Dennis is going to West Virginia, and I'm hoping that because Dennis has the capabilities. He's tough. He's smart. He tries hard. He can make a huge jump at West Virginia. But they were a little bit different levels by their senior year. I don't think they were here, right? And Dennis lost to that kid from Pine Bush by a point. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, I think that you got that first score or whatever, and I think, you kind of felt a little pressure maybe, and you thought too much. There's a lot going on with your elbow. Most normal people wouldn't have got to where you got, But feeling you and knowing you and wrestling with you, I said, I think that kid wins 1 out of every 30 maybe, if I'm going to be really honest. Do you think that you let pressure get involved in that a little bit too much? What do you think kind of like caused that outcome? And I'm going to talk about how you responded to that, which I was even more impressed with. But do you think pressure had something to do with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was coming in as the returning state champ, so it's kind of like you have to win, right? Yeah. You're the best guy pretty much in the state. Like if you lose, it's embarrassing, really. So I kind of went in there. And I wasn't wrestling to win every single position. I was wrestling to win the end of the match, which never works. You always lose if you try doing that. So I feel like I just needed to. I wasn't going shot by shot. I was going pretty much period by period. Did I win the period? Did I win the period? Which is never good in a wrestling match.
Yeah, and for me, as one of your coaches. And Coach Chabelles, you know this, but as AJ, as somebody that worked as hard as he did, and as good as he is, it was hard for me. It's harder for AJ, but it was hard for me to watch because I know you were better than that. But I not that I'm glad that it happened, but I feel like it's something that you could use, right? Because you handled it like a man, right? So same thing when I talked about when you came to the Bronx with my girls and you came to the Bronx with my students. I saw right then there what kind of person you are. Right, I'm like, this kid's good. He's good. Regardless of wrestling, he's good. And the way you handled your state finals loss, being as good as you are, winning flow, winning states the year before. I think pound for pound, one of the best guys in the whole entire state. But it didn't happen. A bad match happens, and sometimes they happen. It just happened at the wrong time. And seeing your response showed me that this is just my interpretation of this. I felt it. It hurt. because I know you're better than that guy. But at the same time, watching how you recovered from that, I'm like, the best is yet to come for AJ Kovacs. Like, it's not even close. Like, and I think you should always keep that match. You know, state title in high school is going to mean nothing on the grand scheme of things. You got one already. So no matter what, you're always a state champ. But like, hard practice, right? You're a hard practice at NC State and you're tired. That's one that you put in your head, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I hated how that felt. I don't want to feel that anymore. You know, what would you say maybe about how you responded to that? Because if I remember correctly, maybe I didn't see everything, but you handled it like a man. You handled it very maturely. Why were you able to handle it so maturely? If that's a question that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I remember walking off the mat, going to the back room, and I was kind of just thinking about like what happened, and really, you can't blame anyone but yourself because you're the only one out there. So I remember I couldn't get mad at anyone. There was no one to get mad at. So I kind of just sat in the back room for a while, and I was kind of just thinking to myself like what I did wrong, how I wrestled. And I remember John coming over and talking to me for a while. We kind of just had a little heart-to-heart. But then I remember, I think I was in the practice room like that week or something just because, I don't know, it didn't have to be hard, but I just wanted to be back in the room and maybe watch my match again, watch a couple other matches, do some film, some mental work, because I think that really played a big part in how that match went. Some more mental work, some more physical work, active recovery, really.
Yeah. I mean, that says a lot about you right then and there. You know, a lot of kids, for me, you know, like I said, I was never as successful as you, but my junior year I took fourth, and my senior year I didn't even place. Same thing as you, I was dealing with some injuries and stuff. I went from fourth and not even placing, like that just never happened. But to this day, as a 33-year-old, I would have a hard time watching those matches because I know that wasn't me. You know, so for you as an 18-year-old to be able to say, let me watch these matches, let me figure out what I'm going to do, I think that says a lot about you. It says a lot about your capabilities and a lot about your mindset. Would you say the same, Coach Sabellis?
I've never watched my last match in college.
It's hard. It takes a real man, and I don't want to be sexist, like women, whoever. It takes a real tough person to say, you know what, I made some mistakes in here. Let me see what I did because my career is not over. You know, I have to improve. You know, I got to keep writing this book, right? Like that silly Kevin Hart skit that I shared with people. It wasn't a skit, it was a motivational thing or whatever. But, you know, you're writing your book, right? How do you want your book to end? You don't want your book to end with a bad match at States. You know, I would like AJ's book to end with an NCAA title and Olympic gold, but like I said before, more so I would like it to end with contentment, you know, like happiness, like, you know, like whatever it is, I'm good. I worked as hard as I can and I'm good, you know. So I'm still super proud of you for your whole thing, coming back from that elbow injury that a lot of people wouldn't have came back from and even competing in the first place. So before we wrap up, AJ, let's talk a little bit about college and COVID and all that stuff. We talked a little bit about it with Camacho, but how's it getting in that NC State room where you got some killers around your weight class? How's that going?
I actually like it a lot. We have assigned partners right now, so we're kind of stuck to certain partners. But today we had a little match day, so I got beat up a little bit. Which I mean, I was wrestling Matt Fields, Hayden, and Jared Papsy, and I did pretty good. I won against Papsy and Fields, but me and Hayden went a little freestyle go at the end, and it ended pretty quick. So
for the people that are listening, Hayden is second and third in the NCAA, so he's probably, I would say, the favorite to win the NCAA title next year. So it wasn't like he was wrestling some random guy. He wasn't wrestling Coach Anthony. He was wrestling the superstar. You know, so
I got a takedown though. That's what I cared about.
Awesome, man.
You know, you told me that you got one today.
Yeah, I got one today.
That's not your first one, right?
No, it's my second.
So he's got two. Now, Coach, you probably remember with your college career, but I'll tell a story from my college career. There was a kid on my team. His name was James Strauss. His junior year, he was ranked like 15th or 14th in the country. His senior year, he took fourth at my weight class. So he was good. He was very good. Not as good as Hayden, though. Fourth. You know, not second. Fourth is still very good. I remember it took me until January of my freshman year to get one takedown on him. And to me, that was like the best thing ever. Now, again, that was the year he was ranked 15th in the country. That's not the year he took fourth. AJ's wrestling a kid who's an NCAA finalist and probably the favorite to win the tournament, and it's got 2 takedowns on him. That shows me, AJ, that what you're capable of, because because you guys might be here and here, but in the room, mentally, because he's that guy, you're probably here and here because you think he's that guy. So for you able to go and get 2 takedowns on him, you might be a little bit closer than you think to being that guy, and I think that's super impressive. How is he as a leader? Is he a good dude, Hayden?
Oh yeah. After we wrestle, even today, after we wrestled, comes up to me. Oh, you're hanging your right hand too much.
Love that.
I go pop single every time on you, or it's whether we're doing sprints, he's making everyone go harder, or just they're all really good. All the captains.
Who's the captains?
We have AJ, Lighton, the Hidleys, and the Bullards, I think, something like that.
Camacho is not.
He's a junior, so his redshirt sophomore actually.
Yeah.
How
would you say? And I want Coach to jump in here. I know I'm like taking over. Like I can't stop talking.
No, not at all. I'm enjoying it.
But how would you say? And I asked Camacho a similar question, but you, Camacho, RJ, that's the Danbury connection. But then you add Jacob Ferreira and Griffey, the Empire connection. Do you have you have 5 Empire members, and then Kevin Jack is the coach. That's 6 Empire members that are involved. Do you like having those guys around? Like is there you could share inside stories, or how's that whole thing, that whole relationship?
Oh yeah, I love it, honestly. It's like it honestly kind of reminds me that like we're still at the club, still kind of one of the bigger reasons why we're doing it, that these guys eventually are going to be lifelong friends, and we're going to have each other the rest of our lives. And it's just showing up to the practice room, same old. A lot of times, like I talked to Jacob Ferrer, he's like, oh, are you wrestling with Torch when you get back? Like, who you wrestling with? I'm like, yeah, stuff like that. You just have home connections here now. It's just nice.
I love it too, because I can get information from all 5 of you.
Exactly.
I get information off the other ones about the other ones. I can find out what's going on, but I love it. I love that you guys are all there. I love that I could talk to Jacob Ferreira about how AJ's doing. I can talk to AJ about how RJ's doing. I can talk to RJ about how Camacho's doing. Like I love that. I love that NC State is a pipeline from Empire. I think that's really cool. Coach, I have one more question about NC State, but do you have another question about college before I hit him with that, or are you pretty good?
Oh, no, I'm good. Go ahead.
My question was coaching, right? Like, because when me and AJ actually were both fortunate that we had John as a coach. As crazy as John could be sometimes, he's a great coach, and like he helped me a lot when I was in high school, and I'm sure he helped AJ a lot when AJ was in high school. And, Ed, I like to think I helped AJ, and Coach Shabels was great when he was at Greeley, and he's had a lot of great people in his life. But right when I got to college and I met Coach Ryan, it wasn't that he was better than John. It was just different. It was college, right? It was a different world.
Yeah.
How would you explain maybe your relationship with Coach Pat, Coach Donnie, Coach Adam, and what's going on at NC State and how you're learning? Because Jared Ferreira told me the other day that he did like a lesson with I think Donnie, and he learned like 7 new moves, and he was like really pumped up about it, and he's a technical wizard, and he has all these things. Like, how is that going for you? And like Pat as the CEO and the leader, is it cool? Is it a cool thing? Like, how's that going?
Yeah, the whole operation is really cool. So I actually do my privates with Donnie too, and his right now we're working on my hand fighting and head pressure, because I'm more of an outside tie guy, kind of let guys get pressure on me and then I counter off of it or something like that. So he knows I'm good there, right? So now we're kind of working where I'm vulnerable, which I really like. I like how he's really good around there. But I mean, the coaches, they're all really nice. You kind of talk to some more than others, obviously, but they know their wrestlers really well. They all coach differently to them. Like, during practice, you'll hear Pat in your ear. Some guys he's kind of lays off them because they'll get too fired up or something like that. But yeah, I feel like you guys, like Empire, Greeley, and them, they're not completely different. The way they run their practices are a little different just because college and high school. But really, I like all the coaches. I like all the teammates. It's all really fun at the end of the day.
That's awesome. And you said you're coming back in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So I expect, because me and Jacob Ferreira have beef right now, because here's the difference between Jacob Camacho and Jacob Ferreira. I texted Jacob Camacho the other day because I was going over a knapsack series. And remember, he probably still drills it, and you've probably done this before too, but when the guy bends his knees up, how you grab it by the shoelace and like hyperextend a little bit. So I forgot exactly how Jacob used to do that, so I FaceTimed him. He answered me right away, showed the kids, it was great. Jacob Ferreira says he learned all these moves from Donnie, but he's like, I'll show you when I get back from Thanksgiving. You can't send me a damn recording? Like, what the hell? I want it now. That's what I want. So a couple things. I want you to remind Jacob Ferreira will you see him tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
Remind him that I foot swept him to hell, and he's got to stop telling people that didn't happen, because it did. At least Camacho admitted it.
Well,
AJ,
I can't really say much about the foot sweep because
it's got you.
Yeah.
See, but you're man enough to admit that it happened to you. Right? It happened. It happens. Everybody gets hit by it. It's just, I'm lethal with that, so let's deal with it. But Ferreira's in denial. But bust his chops, because he told me, and this is something that you probably work with Coach Donnie as well, but he told me like he was working on like head position, shooting on the same side of his head position, all this stuff. He has this new setup for his high crotch. I'm like, send it to me. He's like, I'll show you on Thanksgiving. I need a library of this so I could copy it and show it myself. So I'm gonna steal Coach Donnie Vincent's stuff. But
yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap up, AJ. So I'm gonna let Coach DeBella say something. I'll say something, and you got the last words. Okay. So Coach, hit him.
AJ, good luck the rest of the way. We're gonna be down there to watch you. I'd like to see all 5 of you guys in the starting lineup for a duel sometime down the road. That'd be awesome. So yeah. So good luck, man. It's been a pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.
For me, AJ, I don't want to come off extremely corny, so I'm gonna try to not be emotional, because I don't have emotions. I don't think. Kara, my wife has actually said that I don't have emotions, which is kind of mean, I feel like. But
you're too tough.
If it is, it is. The shoe fits. But for you, AJ, I'm extremely proud of you for multiple reasons, in wrestling and outside of wrestling. I'm extremely proud of you that you were able to make that move from Danbury to Iona and be successful academically and wrestling. You worked your butt off, and you did a really, really good job. Obviously proud of your state title and your full national title. I'm obviously proud of you coming back from a bad injury and still taking second in the state and handling it like a man, and then coming back to practice and helping the younger generation still and doing the right stuff. Proud of you for coming in my school, working with my kids. Proud of you for helping the Taft girls, and super excited to see where this goes for you. I think you're going to be a national champion. I tell people all the time that out of all the people I've coached, you're one of the most talented and toughest and hardest working kids I've ever coached. So I think that, the sky's the limit. If it's a national title, it's a national title. Don't giggle like that, mother. Ooh.
I did a
thing. You did a little emoji.
Oh, you did emoji, a thumbs up? I thought you were laughing at my moment of trying. Like, I feel like kind of like I'm open right now. I'm saying things here, and you're laughing at me, but that's fine.
No, I love that. I was just like Coach DeBell's reaction.
But all seriousness, super proud of you. I can't wait to watch you. And I want it to be a national championship, NCAA championship, and Olympic gold and all that cool stuff. But like I said, if you're 35, 40, and you have a great family and you're doing a great job, I'll be super proud of you. Your parents are great. They did such a good job with you and Logan, even though me and Logan are mortal enemies. And I'll see him on Sunday or Monday. I'm going to smack him up because he just looks at me the wrong way. But we're excited to see where your future goes. And like Coach DeBella said, if you, Grippy, Camacho, Jacob Ferreira, who am I forgetting? RJ, are all in the lineup at the same time. Me and DeBell's are flying in, and DeBell's going to be the first
get you on the speed dial.
That's
first
it.
Ticket, baby.
All right, AJ, you can wrap it up, bud, and then we'd be done.
Yeah. Obviously, I always think about it as like you guys are really where it started. So, obviously, big thank you to you guys. It's always really fun. It's always fun talking shop. Obviously, getting some little background on me, and even though you guys know me pretty well, some stuff you didn't know. But yeah, thank you guys always.
You're the man.
And,
I'm sorry. Keep going.
I'll be back to wrestle towards. So.
I don't. For the people that are listening, I know I like to come off as a tough guy, but I do not want anything to do with AJ anymore. I think I'm past. I think I'm past that. You know,
we're getting a match. We're getting a match, at least one.
Listen, all right. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not scared, but
saying.
the results might not be good in my part. But I'm there. I'm there. I'll lace them up whenever. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're the man, AJ. Hang on for a second. But this was a really good interview. We'll talk a little bit after.